So, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spy Knight, and in these podcasts, I like talking all things. I love talking all things, movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing the Best Picture nominated film for this year's Academy Awards, which is The Brutalist. So, let's get into it, shall we? The Brutalist is this new film starring Adrien Brody, Guy Pearce, Felicity Jones, and it's directed by Brady Corbett, who I must admit I am not familiar with as a director. I haven't seen any of Brady Corbett's films before. And this film is already being called the Frontrunner for Best Picture at this year's Academy Awards. People are saying that this is the film which is going to win Best Picture at this year's Oscars. So that is why I was intrigued about seeing it. But I'd be lying if I said I was excited about seeing this film before I saw it yesterday because of the runtime. According to Google, I just looked this up on Google before I did this review today. According to Google, this film is 3 hours and 35 minutes long. That's a long movie. And it has an intermission, granted. I knew it had an intermission before I saw it, but it was still just the idea of being in a cinema for around about 4 hours. Oh, it didn't fill me with excitement. You know, there's so many long movies I've seen in the past which I've adored so much. I mean, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. You know, I love the movies dearly. I love Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia. I mean, loads of Paul Thomas Anderson films are around the 3 hour mark or around the 2.5 hour mark. I love a good, and I mean good, long movie, but I don't know, there was just something about this film which made me sceptical about it, like whether it was the trailer or whether it was what I'd heard about. I was like, oh, a 3.5-hour film, a film that's around 3 hours and a half, about an architect, I don't know, an immigrant architect. It's not selling me, and so I was skeptical about the film before I saw it, particularly because of the runtime. Nevertheless, I did see it yesterday, and I went into the film with an open mind. I went into the film wanting to love it even. There's been plenty of Oscar films in the past, you know, films that have been nominated for Oscars, or films that have won Oscars in the past, which I've watched and I just haven't got. And I was very much hoping that wouldn't be the case with this film when I saw it at the cinema yesterday. And the Google plot synopsis for this film goes as follows. Escaping post-war Europe, a visionary architect, played by Adrien Brody in this film, comes to America to rebuild his life, his career, and his marriage. On his own, in a strange new country, he settles in Pennsylvania, where a wealthy and prominent industrialist, played by Guy Pearce in this film, recognises his talent. And that's pretty much all you need to know about this film before seeing it. And honestly, I thought this was a very well-made film. I thought it was a very good film, even. I thought this was a very good film, but not a brilliant film like I was hoping it would be. There is so much to admire about this film, and I get why so many people are loving it. You know, whether it's in the way it is made, in the way it's directed. There is a filmmaking with this movie. There's this confidence and this elegance in the filmmaking of the film, which I haven't seen in many movies over the past decade. The filmmaking really did astound me. There's so many sequences I was like, wow, just the way you framed so many things here and the way the camera is moving in this sequence alone is kind of blowing my mind. And the cinematography has this architectural look to it because this is a film about an architect, and I loved the way so many shots looked in the film, and it is a film that feels big, it feels epic, and you look at the budget of the movie and you're kind of astounded that it feels so epic because of how small of a budget they had. But there's so many shots in the film where just something going on in the background of the shot makes that scene feel epic. If you've seen the film, you'll probably know what I'm going on about more there, but there's an epic feel to the film, which I didn't expect to say. The performances are mesmerising. Adrian Brody is captivating in the film, and I think he deserves to win the Oscar for Best Lead Actor in a Film this year. I think he's better than Timothée Chalamet in A Complete Unknown. I liked Timothée Chalamet in A Complete Unknown, but I think Adrian Brody is utterly captivating in this film. I mean, just thinking about his performance now, I'm kind of speechless thinking about him, actually. What I'm trying to say is, I wasn't able to get. When I was watching his performance in the film, I just felt like I was watching the character he was playing. That's what I'm trying to say there. Guy Pearce is also phenomenal in this film. Probably the best Guy Pearce performance I've seen from him. And I like seeing him in a film which is getting a lot of love. Because I haven't seen Guy Pearce in a film like this, in a high-profile film, for quite a bit of time. I mean, I don't know how high-profile you'd actually say this film is, but it's been nominated for Best Picture, so, you know, it's quite high-profile. I haven't seen Guy Pearce in a film like this in a while. And it was nice. It was not nice, actually. It was great to see him in a role like this, and you can tell he really liked playing this character. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but it feels like when you watch the movie that he really loved playing this character. You know, he is really. You know, what am I trying to say here? For some reason, I'm lost for words on the morning that I'm recording this podcast today. But you can tell he is loving every minute playing the character. That is what I was trying to say. And Felicity Jones is also brilliant. And the brilliant thing about Felicity Jones is I didn't feel like I was watching her when she was playing the character she was playing in the film. And I've seen Felicity Jones in about 100 things. You know, she was in a Star Wars movie, and if you can't tell already, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Just look behind me. And yet, I was watching her in this film, I was thinking, wow, she just sinks into this role seamlessly, and she is remarkable. Utterly remarkable in this film. Performances, and like I said before, all mesmerising, including supporting performances which I haven't really spoken about. And this story I find myself wrapped up in. You know, the first half of the film, I couldn't believe how much I was into, because I honestly went to this film wanting to love it, for sure. But at the same time, I was thinking, oh god, this is going to be one of those Oscar movies which isn't going to be for me, and it's going to be like one of those artsy-fartsy films. And yet I was sat there in the first half of the film, before the intermission, so absorbed, so engrossed by the film, whether it was in the way it was shot, whether it was in the storytelling, the performances, the direction, the writing. There was so much about the first half of the film which I was emotionally taken by. And there were parts, big parts of the second half of the film which I was emotionally taken by as well, but not as much. And that's my big problem with this film. The second half isn't nearly as good as the first half, in my opinion. And for me, this film didn't earn its 3 hour and 35 minute runtime. Like, people are going to disagree with me there, and that's fine. You know, it's all subjective. If we all agreed on film and TV shows, we all had the same opinion on film and TV shows, then what would be the point of me doing these reviews? What would be the point of anyone doing any film or TV reviews, you know? And if you did think that this film earned its runtime, then that's great. I don't want to take that away from you whatsoever. And I don't want to seem like I disliked the movie, because I really didn't. I thought that so much of it was kind of amazing to watch, you know. But at the same time, the second half of the film, I felt that it lost its way, and it became self-indulgent in parts. And I was watching the second half of the film thinking, what is the purpose of this part of the film? What is this part of the film trying? What is the themes? What is the idea? What are the ideas, should I say? What are the ideas that this part of the film is trying to get across? And this film is full of all these different themes and ideas which are well explored. But I almost think it's got too many themes and ideas going in it, and I don't think it really settles on one. And I think that becomes its detriment, because you get to the end of the film, and I couldn't help but feel empty by the ending. The ending left me feeling unsatisfied. And for a 3 hour and 35 minute film, I didn't want to get to the end and feel unsatisfied. Like, I was walking out of the cinema, and I was like, what was the point of the ending? And maybe if I watched the ending again, I'd feel differently. Maybe if I watched the whole film again, I would feel differently. But I'm in no rush to see the film again, and if I'm being completely frank, and there's no point in me doing this review today if I'm being completely honest, I will probably never, ever, ever watch this film again in full. I might watch part of the film again simply to watch how Brady Corbett, stages and directs so many sequences just to get ideas, something just to really, sink back into the filmmaking, if you will, sink back into the world of the Brutalist. But at the same time, I will probably never ever watch this film again in full because it's a very, very long movie that I do not think earns its runtime, and I think loses its way in its second half, and has an underwhelming ending. The ending. I did get to the ending of the film, and I was like, that was it. That's what the whole film was leading to. I wanted it to feel more satisfying. And again, if you did feel that the ending was satisfying, if you did feel that this film earned its 3 hour and 35-minute runtime, then I don't want to take that away from you. And if you love the film, that's brilliant. I wish I loved the film. But I was so taken by the first half of the film that I couldn't help but feel underwhelmed by the second half of the film. I'm not saying the second half of the film doesn't have merit. There were parts of the second half of the film which I found myself emotionally taken by, but not nearly as much as I did in the first half of the film. And again, it's just, I don't feel the film earned its runtime, and I know I keep going back to that, but that is a big thing when this film is this long. When a film is this long, it needs to earn that runtime. It's one of the reasons it's one of the same problems I had with Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, which came out last year. That film was around about the same length as this film, and it didn't have an intermission. I do think this film benefited from having an intermission, because I think the intermission comes in the perfect place, by the way. But, Killers of the Flower Moon, that film was around 3 hours and a half, maybe even longer. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But one of my big problems with that movie is just, it didn't sustain my engagement. And in the second half of this film, in the second half of The Brutalist, my engagement wasn't sustained. Whilst I have seen long films in the past, and my engagement has been sustained. People are going to roll their eyes when I say this now, when I use this next film, or this next series of films, should I say, as an example. But, people roll my eyes at me all the time, so no change there. Yes, when I rewatch every year, should I say, when I rewatch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, yes, I'm going there because I am a nerd, I'm a geek. When I rewatch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, those films, particularly when I rewatch the extended versions of those movies, they're about 4 hours each. I mean, the extended version of Return of the King is 4 hours and a half long. It's a flipping long film. But when I rewatch the extended versions of all three Lord of the Rings films, my engagement is sustained throughout my viewing experience of those movies. And sure, you could say, oh yeah, it's because of the big battle sequences and the action sequences and whatnot, but it's not just because of the battle and the action sequences. It's also because of the storytelling, because of the writing. If you look at the second Lord of the Rings film, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, I think that is the Lord of the Rings film with the least action, with the least battle sequences. I mean, yes, it has the Battle of Helm's Deep in its final act, and yes, the whole sequence with the wild, the creature that the orcs ride about halfway through that film, and that's quite a good action sequence in the movie. But at the same time, The Two Towers doesn't have a lot of big epic action sequences, yet at the same time the writing and the storytelling is so engrossing, and it's a character driven film. It's a character driven epic, not too dissimilar than The Brutalist. I mean, yes, they are two very different films. I'm not really comparing both movies, but at the same time, if you're going to draw a similarity, that'd be the similarity that I would draw. The two character driven epics. And in the case of The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, it keeps me engaged through its writing, through its character-driven story and its storytelling. It doesn't let go of my engagement. And I watch the extended version of The Two Towers once a year around the Christmas and New Year period. And the extended version is about 4 hours long. But I never feel bored by it. I'm not saying I felt bored by The Brutalist, but I was watching the second half of The Brutalist feeling like, what is the purpose of this? I started to question certain sequences, and I didn't feel like that. I wasn't doing that. in the first half of the film. You know, it was a very perplexing experience watching the second half of the film, you know, because I couldn't believe how much I was into the first half. I couldn't believe how much I was engrossed by it. But the second half, I couldn't believe how much I was unengaged by so many parts. I did feel the film lost its way, and I was sat there and watching the second half of the film, the thought did come to my mind, this thought which I'm about to say did come to my mind multiple times. I think this may work better as a 2.5 hour film. I think if this was tighter, then it could have been far more effective and had a greater effect on me leaving the cinema. And I'm not saying the film didn't have an effect on me leaving the cinema. I have thought a lot about it since I saw it. Since I left the cinema yesterday, I have been thinking a lot about the film, and the musical score for the film, it goes something like that. I might be getting a bit wrong there, but the musical score for the film hasn't left my mind since I saw it yesterday. There's so much about the film which hasn't left me since I saw it. But for a 3 hour and 35 minute film, I wanted it to fully work for me. I wanted to come out of the cinema feeling fully satisfied. But I didn't. And that is why I can't say it's a brilliant movie. I think it's exceptionally well made. And I think it's a very good film. But not quite the best picture-worthy film I was hoping it was going to be. And just before I round up my thoughts and my feelings on this film, I'm going to talk about some of the controversies surrounding this movie, surrounding its use of AI. I haven't done loads of research on this, and maybe I should have before I did this review today, but, you know, I do have a life outside of doing this review, so I didn't really have much time to prep for this review today. But at the same time, I have heard people talk about the use of AI regarding this film. And here's my feeling on it. From what I've heard, AI was used to enhance the Hungarian accents of some of the actors in this movie. And also, it was used to make some of the architectural sketches towards the end of the film. That's what I've heard. I've heard multiple people talk about this film. A lot of critics and a lot of film pundits that I follow online talk about the use of AI surrounding this film. And so that's what I've heard. I might be wrong. Maybe AI was used in a different way with this movie that I'm unaware of. But from what I've heard, it was used to enhance Hungarian accents of actors, and it was used to make some architectural drawings for the end of the film. That's what I've heard. That use of AI when it comes to films doesn't grind my gears too much. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would have preferred AI to not be used to do all that. I would have preferred just normal craftsmanship they would have got in films over the past 20 years to be used to make those architectural drawings towards the end of the movie, and I would have preferred AI not to be used to enhance Hungarian accents, but they did use AI as a tool to make this film. I think the way they used AI in the filmmaking of this film isn't too much of an issue. My thing is with AI and film is when they use it as the tool to make movies. Like here, the Robert Zemeckis directed and Tom Hanks and Robin Wright starring film which I watched last week and reviewed on this channel last week. One of my big problems with that film was how it used AI. It basically used AI to make Tom Hanks and Robin Wright and all the other actors in that film. It was used to make them look younger, and that didn't sit right with me, because one of the points I made in my view of that film was, how long then is it going to get to the point where we don't even need Tom Hanks and Robin Wright physically on a set for them to be AI in a film? And I think here is making that idea, you know, get even closer. The film here is putting us a couple more steps towards not having actors physically on set anymore, because we can just AI them in. I don't know if that's the right way of putting that, but hopefully you get the point I'm making. I don't like AI when it's used in that way, when it's used as the tool to make a film. But in the case of The Brutalist, I didn't mind I didn't love it, don't get me wrong, and I didn't really like hearing that AI had been used in the filmmaking of this movie, but it didn't annoy me, it didn't frustrate me as much because it wasn't used as the tool to make the film. It was just used as a tool. Now, if I hear more information about it in the forthcoming days, weeks or months, or maybe even years, I may feel differently. But I didn't mind the use of AI so much in this film because it wasn't as noticeable, and I don't think it really takes anything away from the experience, from the filmmaking, from all the work that has been put into this movie. I don't really think it takes anything away in this case. Again, my opinion may change, but for now, it didn't bother me too much. It did bother me, but not as much as it did with the case of Here, which I watched last week. So yeah, I understand why there's some controversies around this film. I didn't love the use of AI in the case of this film, the case of The Brutalist, but I can get over it. It's when it's used as the main tool in the making of a movie that it really starts to annoy me. That really starts to worry me as well. But anyway, going back to the film itself. Like I said before, there is so much to admire with this film. It's got this dark, twisted, engrossing storytelling that I really got into, and I didn't expect to. I was there watching the first half of the film thinking, if I wasn't watching this in the cinema, would this be working for me as much as it is now? But the fact is, I was watching it in the cinema, and I do think that did help with the experiential viewing that I had of this movie, that I had with this film. I thought the performances were, as I already mentioned, utterly captivating. I thought the direction was really, something to study. I thought the filmmaking in itself was, amazing, for lack of a better word. I thought the score was hauntingly beautiful, and it stayed with me. I love how the film keeps you engaged in its first half, and I do think the film has a lot of great parts in its second half. But the second half did derail for me. And ultimately, I left the cinema yesterday feeling empty and cold, and feeling unsatisfied after being sat in the cinema for 4 hours. If you count the adverts that came for the movie, and if you count the intermission as well, which lasts for about 15 minutes, the film, I was in the cinema watching this film for about 4 hours when you really think about it. And after 4 hours, I wanted to leave the cinema feeling like my life had almost been changed, And maybe that's too much to ask for. But I don't know if it is when it's a film this long, actually. And I was hoping to have that feeling. I was hoping to come out of the cinema feeling like, you know what, my life was completely different before I saw this movie. But I didn't get that. And I think that's why I didn't end up loving it, and why I didn't think it was a brilliant film. Still, it's a very good movie that I can see being studied and admired and whatnot for years to come. So yes, it is. I understand why it's been nominated for Best Picture, but personally, I wouldn't give it the Best Picture win, because I don't think the second half quite reached the heights of the first half and suffered for it. I do think it may have worked better as a 2.5 hour film, but that's just me. And so, all in all, I do feel a bit weird giving this film a rating because I didn't love it, but I did strongly admire it. So, I do feel a bit weird giving it a rating, but I'm going to say that The Brutalist, I'm going to say that it's an 8 out of 10. If I was just ranking it on how the film was made and all the craft that went into it and all that jazz, then I'd probably give it something like a 9 out of 10 or a 9.5 out of 10. Or maybe even a 10 out of 10. But I'm ranking it on my personal thoughts and feelings regarding the film. And for the first half alone, I would give that a 10 out of 10. But the second half, just, again, I felt it lost its way. And that's why I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Because personally, like I've said about 5 times in this review today, I did get to the end of the film and I was like, all that led to that. I wish it was more satisfying. But still, again, there's so much to admire, and I get why it's being nominated for Best Picture. I get why it's getting honest love, and if you do love the film, then that's great. I don't want to take that away from you whatsoever, and I don't dislike the film. Too many times I do these reviews and people say, "Oh my god, I can't believe you dislike the movie," and I'm like, no, you haven't listened to me. I didn't dislike the film. I liked it quite a bit. I was surprised by how much it worked to me, because I wasn't really expecting it to work for me. I thought it was going to be one of those Oscar movies, which didn't. But I just don't quite think it's the masterpiece that everybody else is making it out to be, or that so many other cinephiles, if you want to use that word, I don't really like that word to be honest, but I don't think it's quite the masterpiece that a lot of other people are making it out to be. And I don't think it's quite the masterpiece because it doesn't earn that runtime. And when a film has that runtime, when a film is about 3 hours and a half long, it's got to earn its runtime. And for me, this one didn't. So yeah. I thought it was a very good movie, just not a brilliant film. For the reasons that I've gone on about at length in this review today. And so, all in all, as I already said, and as I'm going to say once more in this podcast today, The Brutalist is an 8 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen The Brutalist, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Maybe you love the film, and if you did, that's great. Please let me know why I'm wrong in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on the podcast, on the video, should I say, like and subscribe on this video, if you enjoyed the video, of course. And look forward to many more videos and many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. As I've already said, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. And yeah, we got there in the end. I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye.